Okay, I'm back. So, all in all, I thought that the ER visit was okay. Like I said, I was really glad to see that my numbers did, in fact, double plus increase. And like I said, I wasn't too concerned about the fact they couldn't see anything on the ultrasound. This is my fifth pregnancy, and I have had many early ultrasounds. With my oldest daughter, I think they did one when I was like 5 weeks, barely, couldn't see anything. Oh, you're having a miscarriage. She turned out fine, and she's 15 now. Second daughter had a couple of early ultrasounds, same concept. We can't see anything. Of course, you're not going to see anything. It's early. And then, of course, went back a couple weeks later, and there she was. And she's 13 now, so she's fine. The third pregnancy that I lost, the third pregnancy, but the first one I lost. That one, they ended up doing 4 ultrasounds before they finally called it and did a DNC. And the first one started out, I think I was barely 3.5 weeks pregnant. I wasn't even 4 weeks yet. And they did several ultrasounds between 4 weeks, or the 3.5 and 9.5 when they finally did the DNC. The pregnancy last year that I lost at 11.5 weeks, total, they ended up doing, I think, three ultrasounds in the ER, on different days, and then two ultrasounds at the doctor's office. And, one of the ones at the doctor's office is when we actually saw the baby, saw the heartbeat. And then a week later, they went to go remeasure the baby to make sure the baby was growing. And, of course, the heart had stopped. So, I ended up with like 5 ultrasounds from the last pregnancy. So, for me, the whole, it's real early, we don't see anything, is not that big of a deal. If I was a little further along and we didn't see anything, yes, I definitely would be concerned. But because I know I'm still very early, it doesn't faze me. So for right now, I'm simply still taking my progesterone, trying to relax, trying not to stress out and be nervous, which is really, really hard for me. Unfortunately, because of how infertile I am, when I actually, amazingly do get pregnant, it's really hard for me not to obsess about what could go wrong or, compare it to the last pregnancy or the one before that. I will say, though, that this pregnancy has definitely been very, very different from the others. And my first inclination was that, well, maybe it's, a little boy and maybe that's what's different. But, the last pregnancy was different. The pregnancy before that was different. Now, my first 2 pregnancies were fairly similar, and both of those were girls. So, it could be that the last 3 have all been boys. You never know. But I do know that with that, I think it's, Ramsey's method or something like that I've seen online, where they claim placement of the sac determines the sex. Well, I will say that for my girls, my oldest daughter, she was in the very middle of my uterus towards the back. With my second daughter, she was in the very front of my uterus towards the middle at the top. The last 2 pregnancies that I lost, they were both on the left-hand side, which is what I think I've read, oh, that means it's a girl. Well, that's not where the first 2 were, but okay. And then this one, like I said, they were doing a lot of measurements last night at the ER on my left side. When she did the abdominal, and she did the vaginal, they were both on my left side the majority of the time. And it was interesting because I knew she was taking measurements, but I wasn't sure what she was taking measurements of. And, she took a bunch of measurements, and I thought, well, maybe she's taking measurements of my ovaries. Well, then after she spent like 5 minutes taking measurements and I could hear her clicking, then she says, oh, well, give me just another minute. I've got to take some measurements of your ovaries. And I'm like, oh, well, then what was she taking pictures of? So I was hoping, while I was waiting in the ER forever, that they had seen a sac and that's what she was taking photos of. But, she wasn't. Evidently, like I said, it appeared as though maybe just the lining is thicker in that area, or that's definitely where the sac may be trying to implant, or is growing or creating, or, I teased and I was telling my husband, because we call the baby super. How some people say little gummy bear or whatever little phrase, we call the baby super, because my husband teases about him having super sperm. So the baby is super, and he swears up and down we're having twins. So we joke around sometimes and say super 1 and super 2. So I told him last night when I got back this morning when I got back from the ER, I said, I couldn't see Super's condo. It's not quite finished yet. They're still in the planning phase. And he thought that was kind of funny. I was amused. But I figure, you got to have some humor in it, because if you don't, anxiety will drive you up the wall. It will drive you crazy. For anyone who's never been through a miscarriage, or anyone who's not had infertility problems, you might not understand some of the stuff that those of us that have go through. You got to think I've been trying to conceive for 13 years. And in 13 years, I've only been pregnant 5 times. That's a problem. So for me, where I can keep it light and make jokes, I do. But there are a lot of times where, it's very serious and I'm very upset and I'm very concerned and worried, but I just try not to stress out and try not to let it get to me. On a side note, just for your FYI, anyone who's watching, and I don't think I mentioned this before, I have psoriasis, and you'll notice in some of my videos, it's really, really bad. Like today is not looking too hot. It's all over my forehead and my eyebrows and my hairline. It's interesting with my first 2 because I've had it since I was 12. It's never gone away completely, with the exception of when I got pregnant with my 2 daughters, it was completely gone. Like literally within days of getting pregnant and conceiving, the psoriasis was gone. And it stayed gone all the way till I delivered. And before I could even get out the hospital good, it had already come right back. Well, I will say with these last 3 pregnancies, the psoriasis never went away. In fact, this one, my psoriasis, typically, I'm a teacher, and during the summer, my psoriasis kind of calms down. It goes away. And as soon as school comes back in, it starts again. And I always tease the kids, oh, I'm allergic to you, and that's why my skin looks like this. But in actuality, I really do think it's the stress level, which my kids do not stress me out. Please don't get me wrong. I absolutely love my job. I love what I do. The kids don't stress me out. My job isn't stressful. But I think just that everyday having to get up, hustle and bustle, do this, I don't know, it's very strange. So my skin, like I said, comes and goes. Well, for the most part, all year long, it looked horrible. Summer came, literally like the day after school was out, it calmed down and you couldn't even tell I had psoriasis anymore on my face. It was completely gone until we got back to like the first week of school. It started coming back just a little bit. Well, of course, I got pregnant right before school started. So getting pregnant and school starting happened at the same time. So I'm not real sure if it's just a coincidence or if the pregnancy has irritated it or going back to school has irritated it more. But I have noticed it is definitely worse than it was this summer. The summer, you could barely tell I had it at all. And now it's kind of come back almost full force. It's not as bad as I've seen. There have unfortunately been times where my skin is bleeding and cracked and, there's absolutely nothing I can do but go to work with Vaseline on my face and it still looks absolutely horrible. It's one of those things where you just deal with it. Well, like I said, this pregnancy, it seems to be getting worse. Last pregnancy, it was definitely getting worse. But again, the last time I was pregnant around this time last school year too. I got pregnant right before school started. So, actually right after school started last year. This year, right before school started. So, like I said, I'm not real sure if it's just timing or what's going on with that. And then the pregnancy I lost in 2003, it didn't exactly get worse. It just didn't go away, like with the first 2. So that made me wonder, well, how are these last 3, have they all been boys? And the first 2 were girls, and that's why it went away. Or like with the last one, and the last 2 I miscarried, and my skin didn't change. I kept thinking, well, maybe that's a sign that something's wrong. Maybe that there just wasn't enough HCG. Well, those 2 particular pregnancies, there was an issue clearly. But this one, my HCG seems to be doing okay. So, I'm hoping it's just one of those fluke things. They say every pregnancy is different. And I will say, like I said, the first 2 were very similar. But I was also, 18 years old pregnant and 20 pregnant. Now, here I am 34. I'll be 35 before this baby gets here. So, the older you get, your body changes more as well. So that, could very well be it. So, we'll see. I will do a couple of videos definitely here coming up about different things I've bought, different products, different things that I find helpful and useful over the years that I've seen even my friends with kids use. They might not have been around when my girls were little, but I've seen them since then. So until then, I will talk to you soon. Bye.